Our next two book clubs will focus also, because this is a long book, so we're taking it, in sections. So please come join us to continue the discussion. We have a couple other announcements. The biggest one that we've been working on is the Flannery O'Connor Centennial Celebration, which begins March 25th, continuing that whole week here in Milledgeville. A giant bash for Flannery. We have a music festival, a screening of Wildcat, but the biggest, I guess, exciting part is the reveal of original paintings by Flannery O'Connor that we've recently acquired. We'll be having a pop-up art opening and a guest lecture with Bob Donahue on O'Connor's other art, so the visual art. We do hope many of you can come and attend some of the festivities, and we've also been gifted by the O'Connor estate with the ability to give a limited number of travel stipends to scholars. So we'll post that in the chat. There's an application. We can give at least 5 $2,000 stipends, which is very generous of the trust. And that's because this is not something that scholars can typically get their institution to pay for, right? You're traveling for a party, essentially. You aren't giving papers. So we hope that will help some of those of you who want to attend who wouldn't be able to. We also have the Laidlaw Fellowship that we have an application up for, and we'll post that link in the chat. The Laidlaw Fellowship is for a junior scholar to come and work in the archives. And usually in the summer months, we have a $2,000 award. So we're actively advertising that now and accepting applications as well. And then on the ground, the Institute is hosting a Southern Gothic lecture series, and it is our inaugural, I guess, how do you say this? It's the inaugural Southern Gothic lecture series. We have 2 speakers coming. The first is February 4th. Sarah Crosby on Save the Rohoshu. I don't know how to say that. Actually, I got to figure that out. Sacrifice Zones in Louisiana and Folklore. And then we have Teresa Gadu coming February 27th. Is that right, Jess, or am I wrong? I think I might have that wrong. We'll post it. And she's going to be talking about Jasmine Ward's Eco-Gothic. So Southern Gothic lecture series focused on Eco-Gothic, the 25th of February. Thank you. We will post all this in the chat. Those are our announcements. Again, we're really delighted to have a full slate of events this year, the Centennial Celebration. So we're sort of kicking it off with lots of in-person events leading up to a giant week. And during the week, we have a day on the birthday. Tours of Andalusia will be free. There'll be birthday cake. Sean Mullins is performing at Andalusia Farm on that Thursday. So lots of stuff happening. So please do join us. And so we'll put a lot of links in the chat. Also, if you aren't yet receiving our newsletter, we're doing a monthly newsletter. Jess McQueen is very ably producing that. So go ahead and put your email in the chat if you'd like to be on our mailing list and receive those. And now I will turn it over to Bruce Gentry.
Hi, everybody. Okay, here we are talking about the prologue of the first 3 chapters of Brad Gooch's biography, Flannery. Katie tells me she was in touch with Brad Gooch today, who said he's so sorry he can't join us tonight. I think, well, maybe next month he'll surprise us and show up and say everything there is to be said about the next chunk of the book, or the final third of the book. He's given talks about the writing of this book. He gave a talk at the 2014 NEH Institute about what it was like to write a biography without permission from the O'Connor estate. And he basically said it made him finish the book. It made him concentrate, not having permission, not having cooperation. from the estate, which is a very interesting perspective. You can see as you look at the book that he is not quoting a lot of previously unpublished material. He's paraphrasing pages. There must be some quotes in there but there's not a lot of stuff in there about thanking people for permission, and he's not crowing about quoting things that nobody else had ever quoted out of unpublished material. So it's yeah, I do remember dropping by Special Collections and seeing that, oh yes, Brad's here again today. He's basically typing the whole O'Connor collection at Georgia College into his laptop. And he did all of his homework, that's for sure. But maybe not being able to use all of that stuff did indeed help him complete the job and on time, in contrast to Sally Fitzgerald and Bill Sessions, who had permission to do everything. And, maybe as a result of that, had more data than any human being could deal with. My starting point in rereading the book and thinking of things to talk about was to look for where I'm surprised about things I didn't remember Brad's book saying. It's been decades since I read the book from beginning to end. I feel as if I'm constantly consulting Gooch's biography because O'Connor scholars quote it all the time, and I'm constantly checking and checking and checking and checking. And I've always told myself I know exactly what's in Brad Gooch's biography because I'm constantly pulling it off the shelf and checking something. But no. When I get to the section that's about Flannery at GSCW, Georgia State College for Women, chapter 3, basically, I say, okay, this is all familiar stuff. I see people talking about these bits regularly. And so I didn't put much of anything from the 3rd chapter on my list of things to talk about. It all sounds familiar to me. Now, that doesn't mean somebody won't want to put something in the chat or raise a hand and bring up something they want to say or ask about having to do with what's in chapter 3, her years at GSAW. In the prologue, in the first 2 chapters, it seems to me there are a lot of things that or enough to fill an hour, things that O'Connor scholars don't talk about. And therefore I've forgotten them. And I'm, I want to bring them up just to say, gee, these are really interesting details in this book. Why isn't somebody speculating more about the significance here, especially in writing? There are quite a few biographies of Flannery O'Connor. I imagine we're probably getting close to 10 now. But Brad Gooch is the one who always seems to get quoted these days. Gene Cash's earlier biography of O'Connor gets talked about next most often. But Brad's has kind of been adopted by O'Connor Studies as the biography to consult. And it helps that he's a really good writer. And I think his, as far as I know, the biography is quite accurate. I'm sure Louise Florencourt had an annotated copy of the biography someplace where she made marginal comments about everything she didn't agree with. But the only thing I know of that's not quite right is a couple of photographs that say, here's Flannery O'Connor, and it's not. If you look at the first batch of photographs following page 118, and you flip to the end of those photographs, you get, well, here's the first one. Somebody sitting in a chair, and that person is identified as Flannery O'Connor. No, it's not. And you turn the page and there's a group picture and we're told, oh, there's Flannery O'Connor in that group. Well, no, that's not her. It's somebody who looked vaguely like her. But I think you can compare on the previous page, the pictures that are clearly of O'Connor on that page to the lady who's sitting on the throne there at Yaddo, and say, no, that's not quite right. But it's the exception that proves the rule, that the book's, well researched and pretty accurate. And I know Brad read a whole lot more than he used, which is a sign of a good biography. He didn't cram everything in. Sometimes he generalizes, and I trust that he had no particular axe to grind. I can tell you from my experience talking to Carol Schloss that my tendency is to take any biographical detail that comes along and want to run down the path with it and speculate it and psychoanalyze everybody within 100 yards. And good biographers resist this tendency that I have. It's a good thing I'm not a biographer, because I just want to say, oh, maybe this means all sorts of things. And I know Carol has ignored a lot of my encouragement to be more speculative about what she's writing in her double biography of Flannery and Regina. And I do vaguely remember pushing Brad on some points and, having him politely resist. And, I don't know. Now I'm happy to turn that into a recommendation for both of those biographies. The Carol Schloss biography, I don't know if I've mentioned it in previous meetings. It's a double biography of Regina and Flannery. It's called the Andalusia Chronicles. It's been accepted by the University of Georgia Press, and I think it's scheduled for publication in 2026. And Carol looked at a lot of documents that Brad didn't. And there's a lot of new material. It doesn't really turn upside down anything Brad says in his book. I still trust all the details in Brad's book. I think from Carol's book, which I've read in manuscript, I think you get more of a sense of constant tension between mother and daughter over the years, about power and money and who gets to boss whom around. And I come back to Brad's biography, and I'm rereading it after having read Carol's forthcoming biography, and I think that Brad's treatment is what we come to expect from O'Connor studies, that there was a little tension between mother and the daughter, but they worked it out, and it was a very functioning relationship. They managed to carry on with their lives, and it's kind of miraculous that things went as well as they did. Okay, and there on in the chat appears the announcement about Carol Sloss's talk, and it's on March the 4th. Okay. Um, don't miss that if you can get to it. Okay. The to me, the interesting thing about the prologue is that Brad decided that there is one key image that is going to be thrown at us and is going to linger in the mind throughout the book. And that is the chicken, not the peacock, the chicken walking backwards. And it's uh, the key anecdote that Flannery would use anytime she had to introduce herself to new people. Oh, I once taught a chicken to walk backwards, and so I was on Pathé News for 1 minute. And it got her through cocktail parties, apparently. And it's more than that. I mean, Brad just kind of insists she is a chicken walking backwards, whatever that means. It's true of Flannery O'Connor. And the backwardsness and the chickenness of it is all, true about her. And I had not known until I read this biography the first time that Flannery depended upon this little story when she was a little kid for, a way to introduce herself to people and something to say to make people remember her her whole life. And, it sounds like her. And it fits, she really was that obsessed with birds her whole life. And again, Brad doesn't do what I would do with that, which was to think about, what kind of mind, what kind of personality is it that really cares so much about birds? They don't exactly give back a lot of love, when you follow a goose around or a chicken or a duck. They just kind of do their own thing and ignore you. And Flannery, I think, liked that. She didn't like birds in spite of the fact that they're kind of cold. She enjoyed being around animals that weren't cuddly. And see, already I'll turn off the spigot about how that could be the key to her whole personality and worldview, and why people want to read her, and the psychology of people who care about Flannery O'Connor. We're all a bunch of chickens. And what else? Stop me anytime, folks. Before I read this book, I think I had already bought into the myth of Flannery as totally independent, isolated, constantly doing her own thing, not caring about anybody else very much, keeping everybody at a distance. Well, she had a big family, a lot of whom were living with her in the Klein house here in Milledgeville. We're going to find out more about that in coming years. And Flannery cared about her relatives, well, how shall I say this? A whole lot more than I do. And that surprises me. And I, reading all those details about all these relatives in the book remind me that when we were talking about Dear Regina, the book of letters back home to Mama, Flannery did talk to her mother quite a bit about their other relatives, and how Flannery, yes, was writing letters to other relatives all the time she's in graduate school. Excuse me, graduate school is the best excuse for not keeping in touch with your relatives ever. And I took, ample advantage of that out. And here's Flannery, worried about whether she's going to finish this thesis and working all the time, but she still carves out time to write letters home all the time. And it's not just Mama, to the various relatives who are going to disapprove of her and of her work. Did you catch that the tail right at the end of the um, right at the end of the section assigned for tonight. When she went to Iowa, all of her relatives thought she'd fail. They wondered, they speculated, how long will she last before she comes, back on the train and says she can't do this. Thank you, family. Of course, that's what families do, is they think we've bitten off more than we can chew. Sometimes they're right, but they did that to Flannery too. And she's close to them, but she's no dummy. She knew that she didn't have a whole lot of people who were confident of her success. And I think, okay, this is just a little, thing mentioned in passing by Brad, but she was close to a bunch of family members, and she had to prove them all wrong. Big motivation for the whole career. I don't know if Flannery was naturally a hard worker, but I think her relationship with her family members surely made her want to become a great writer, so that in part so that she could prove them all wrong. Jumping ahead just a little bit, let me tie in with that. Yeah, Katie, you want to say something?
Well, while you're on the topic of families,
Yeah.
I just flipped through my underlinings, and this is where I got the information. I think that Regina was not close to the O'Connor family, and that when O'Connor and Regina moved back to Milledgeville, they didn't really stay that much in touch with her grandparents, with the O'Connor family in Savannah. Do you know more about that? Or because when you say she's very close to her family, that's the extended Klein family
Oh yeah, that's the Florin
lived in
Court.
Milledgeville.
That's it's Mama's side of the family. No, they didn't keep in touch with the O'Connors. Savannah is full of O'Connors, and I think the Kleins and the Florin Courts considered themselves superior to them socially, and they thought that Regina had married down to to be tied to Ed O'Connor, and that persists. I don't think they ever really changed their minds about
So
the
did
O'Connors.
that mean that Flannery didn't see her grandparents, for instance, or her aunts and uncles once they left? Because she was young. She was like 13.
I think she just saw people in the Klein house.
Okay.
That was her. I
Yeah.
think that was her sense
That's
of.
her whole world at this
I don't
point.
remember. I don't remember comments about those relatives. I just know that there are a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
And Flannery was kind of aware, but did she see them? I don't get
Yeah.
what
And you
happened.
just wonder what would have happened if they had stayed in Savannah. She would have had a
Oh,
different input.
okay. Yes, right. Life would have been totally different. And speaking of if life had been totally different, um, why haven't we been talking forever about a detail that I had forgotten? Regina was all set to marry a Protestant.
Oh.
And why did they break up? Not because her family objected to her marrying a Protestant, but because his family objected to, this is a Pennsylvania family, objected to his marrying a Catholic. Maybe they were objecting to him marrying a Southerner. But wow, everything would have been different. He had married the first choice rather than Ed. And how does that affect the family's commitment to Catholicism? I mean, which nobody questions, and I don't think anybody should question. But it's an interesting wrinkle. How would Regina have managed that? And the other thing that jumped out at me is odd. This was a passing comment, and I don't think Brad documents this where he comes up with this, but he says that Regina thought that maybe Ed had always had lupus from the time she married him. Now, why in the world would she say such a thing? Why would she think that? Why would she share that with anybody? And I, of course, am going to put the most negative spin possible on this. Um, well, maybe she thought he wasn't good enough for her. Maybe she thought he was a slacker. And, that would explain why he was so tired all the time and didn't accomplish much and wasn't a go-getter like Regina. And she took the lupus diagnosis and, kind of said, well, that explains his faults. And, Brad doesn't say that. That's just me taking one not terribly generous, unnecessary comment that, Regina made to somebody one time. Maybe she just thought he had lupus, long before it was diagnosed. I can just look at that and say, she's looking down on her sick husband with such a comment. And what else underlies that? Partly I'm making a thing about this detail because we've always had the tendency in O'Connor studies to assume that this was a pretty good marriage. And, we could very well find out that it wasn't such a great marriage after all. And what stops us is what business is it of ours? Does Flannery think that her family had that there was a bad relationship at the center of her parents' marriage? I don't know. If you believe that all good writing comes out of suffering, that you have to have a terrible childhood to be able to be a writer, then you may be inclined to go looking for problems in the family that brilliant little Flannery could pick up on from an early age. It's clear that she identified with Daddy and not with Mom. And when Daddy was taken away from her at an early age, it was quite the shocker. Yes, Katie, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know where it came from, but when I toured the Savannah childhood home last year, again, I was struck by that detail was repeated, that Ed had been, had a tendency of coming home in the middle of the day, resting on the lounge, wasn't able to get work. It was depression, that kind of thing. And that there was gossip about him. So the diagnosis of lupus, they repeat that as though that's a fact down there. So I don't know, that probably he had lupus far before he was diagnosed because he was very fatigued a lot. So,
Yeah.
mhm.
And one of the directions I go with this is, so how did Flannery regard herself? And my simple-minded answer is, well, she thought she was naturally like her father and she could take it easy, especially after the diagnosis with lupus. She said, oh, I've got an excuse for the rest of my life. I don't have to push myself at all. And on the other hand, she wanted to be like her mother. She wanted to be as much of a go-getter as Mama was going to be, to prove that she was doing her part to keep them going, because life wasn't easy for the mother and daughter. And so she really is her father's child and her mother's child at the same time. And the two parts of the parents that didn't exactly go together well, they're both in Flannery. It just seems to me another skeleton key maybe to her character, if you're happy to speculate. Okay, now I jumped ahead and I want to go back. Yeah, okay. The kitty coop. I don't know how many of you have been to Savannah to take the tour and have the tour person say to you what they said to me. Oh, it's no big deal. Lots of people in Savannah had these wire cages that they lock their children in for the day. Yeah. Now, where did I pick up? Somebody wrote something and they pointed out where kitty coops come from. They come from Rochester, New York. These are not a local invention. Up there in Rochester, they were creating these little cages to put your children in and lock them away for the day. I was astonished. And again, if somebody wanted to do, kind of two-bit psychology on Flannery O'Connor, they could say, "Oh my God, she was obsessed with birds, and she had these memories of being put in that cage that was in her parents' bedroom, I guess. It is there now, on a daily basis and locked away, and it looked like a cage you'd put a bird in. Of course, she would identify with those birds. Her birds had more freedom, I'll bet, than she did when she was in the in the kitty coop. It's a remarkable thing, and it remains difficult for me to imagine, seeing that the kitty coop and thinking of that as a wonderful invention we should all have them to put other people into. I mean, I don't think it dwarfed her or anything, but it just fits a pattern. And again, I would say with Brad, he's got this creepy little detail about the kitty coop that's sitting in the parents' bedroom, and he just puts down the minimum information about it. He doesn't speculate about it, and that's probably good for a biographer. You need an extremist like me to come along and holler over such a detail and say, "Oh my God, what are we going to do with this? She was in a cage throughout her childhood." Okay. What else jumps out at me? I should have had it in my head all these years that, of course, Flannery did resemble her father, and the people commented on it. I don't recall seeing a lot of photographs of Flannery with her father. I know there are some out there. Most of the pictures I've seen are with Flannery with her mother. But of course, she did look like her. She did look like her father, which, of course, raises the question about, how autobiographical the fiction is when you read a story like A View of the Woods, which starts with a child that looks like a male relative. It's her grandfather, right? It's not her father. But still, A View of the Woods will always be puzzling, right? It's a very painful story about torture and trauma and all kinds of unpleasantness, not just the building of Lake Sinclair, just north of Milledgeville. It dares us to read it as autobiography. And I still resist it. I said, "Oh, surely nobody ever did anything to Flannery that begins to compare to what happens to this poor child, Mary Fortune Pitts, in A View of the Woods." It it pushes us to think that this child must have something to do with Flannery, and then pushes it so far that even I, who am happy to, psychoanalyze and speculate, say, "Oh no, let's call a halt to this. If somebody wants to go there, you need to do research that I haven't seen anybody doing, and coming up with a great deal more data about the father-daughter relationship, which I've always thought was a really good relationship, that he really loved her and she knew she was loved because daddy loves her, and they play games together, and it was a great relationship. How did she come around to making me believe so thoroughly in that totally dysfunctional relationship between Mr. Fortune and Mary Fortune Pitts? Okay, so sometimes the biography just makes me feel like I've run into a brick wall, and I don't know what to do with it. Another theme in here is Flannery behaving badly and being a bad little girl. And you know, a lot of us have almost made a saint of the adult Flannery, and so we kind of read backwards and say, well, she must have always been a really cute, charming child, even if she was a little quirky. And no, I think Flannery was quite conscious that she'd been a bad little girl in all sorts of ways, and she didn't necessarily think it was charming. She just wanted to use it. She just wanted to get it into character after character after character after character, and situation after situation um, in the in the fiction, and use it. And I find most of her children quite believable. You know, I think, okay, they're realistic. And it's, I would say, okay, this just, you know, what I'm reading in Brad's biography just confirms me in the belief that, well, she's good at kids because they're her. She's not totally judging them. She's not totally satirizing them because she understands them that well. She may understand them better than she understands adults. I think certainly she understands them in a different way than she understands adults. She might be more forgiving of the faults of children than she is of the faults of parents. There's been a lot of research. There have been a lot of projects that were about Flannery O'Connor and children, and I don't think there's going to be any end to that. Goodness, all that stuff that's at Emory now that's about Flannery's childhood, that stuff's going to be published steadily. All the little books that Flannery wrote when she was a child, I think, you know, those things will be published in lovely editions some of these days, with the change in how the estate is handling its business, and we will get more and more data about Flannery. One of those books will be My Relatives, which apparently is a satire on all of her relatives, and everybody agrees that, oh yeah, she was skewering everybody in the family one by one. I've never read that text, but I imagine it's quite grand. I do. I look forward to reading a published version of this. I've spent more years studying Flannery O'Connor than Flannery O'Connor lived now. And so, you know, forgive me, I have to highlight the things where I'm embarrassed to have forgotten stuff that's in the Gooch biography, and say, why haven't other people been talking about this so I couldn't forget it and be embarrassed that I'd forgotten it? Mary Virginia Harrison. I didn't remember that Brad talked about her, and I don't remember a lot of people talking about Mary Virginia Harrison and the passages that are about here. When I was, I don't know, writing one of my essays about my critical hobby horse of the what I call the substitute child, the notion that parents pick another kid and they're really, really, really nice to them to torture their own biological child. Oh, look, I'm really can be a great parent. Look how nice I am to this person over here. And if only you were a better child, things would be better between us. I see that pattern over and over and over and over. And I knew as I was writing that stuff and speculating about how this could have gotten into Flannery's life, that it would be really nice to have an example of who was the substitute child. When I go back over Brad's biography, I think, well, of course, it was Mary Virginia Harrison. I think I put her name tentatively in one footnote that I wrote one time. And Mary Virginia Harrison is going to be like the Marriott Lee of Flannery's college years once we gather all the data that must be out there somewhere about Mary Virginia Harrison. The big shocker to me in here was that Mary Virginia wasn't as silly as Flannery implies she is. You know, you read Dear Regina, those letters home. It seems to me the message Flannery gives to Mother is, okay, you want me to be nice to Mary Virginia Harrison. I'm going to tell you about every nice thing I do for this person. And I want you to know I'm not enjoying it one bit, but you like her. And so I'm trying to be nice to her. So let me tell you all about it, Mom. So you'll lighten up. Well, Mary Virginia was class president. Well, so she's not as, I mean, that's to me implies a more serious person than Flannery ever gave her credit for in her other comments. I think Flannery was always just kind of embarrassed to be saddled with Mary Virginia Harrison um, as a friend. But hey, reviewing this stuff, I'm happy to say, okay, she's Exhibit A. This is the person that Regina liked, and she encouraged Flannery to be like Mary Virginia, and was nice to Mary Virginia, and pushed Flannery to be nicer to Mary Virginia. And it was that pattern of Regina being nice to Mary Virginia Harrison to imply in Flannery's direction, I could be a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful mother if only you were more like this, you know, substitute child. And I kind of like her better than you. I don't think Regina ever would say such a thing, but you know, we have ways to imply things in family life. We don't have to come out and be blunt about it. And I think, okay, it might not have been, you know, something they talked about on a daily basis, but I buy it that that person and the way Regina pushed Mary Virginia Harrison on Flannery got into story after story after story after story after story in sometimes almost hidden form of the parent who is making the child feel bad by saying, if only you could be like this other person that I'm willing to be nice to. Look what a great parent I could be to you if only you could be like this other person. And you know, the Mary Virginia Harrison eventually committed suicide. She had this what kind of colorful life. Bob Wilson has been known to say that he has seen Mary Virginia's ghost wandering around on campus, which always made me change the subject whenever I was talking to Bob about this. Oh no, Bob, don't talk about this. We're going to have ghost tours all over Milledgeville, and drunken mobs wandering around the town at midnight the way they do in Savannah. I'm not sure I want that for my little town. And you know, Mary Virginia deserves better than that. But I think, okay, people looking for a project, go out there and look for more stuff about Mary Virginia Harrison. What's next? Well, just a few things. Okay, and we anything else anybody wants to bring up, we're going to have time for it. One is page 72. This is, I guess, getting to be kind of a famous quote, but you just can't overstate the significance of this, I think, for relevance to it's a quote from O'Connor at the top of page 72, talking about her father's death. The reality of death has come upon us, and a consciousness of the power of God has broken our complacency like a bullet in the side. Okay, every time I read any scene in O'Connor where somebody gets shot with a gun, I think of Flannery talking about what it was like when she was, what, 15? And her father died. And she said it's like God shot her in the side with a bullet. And I think Flannery's been totally sincere here. This isn't, you know, artsiness. I think this is, you know, totally believably from the heart here. This is the biggest pain she ever had, and she used it. And, you know, that's how many times do people get, you know, our guns pulled and people get shot? And O'Connor happens several times. And I think she doesn't do this lightly. You know, all of her violence is meaningful. And it always, for the author, and then why not for us, goes back to what it felt like when her father died of lupus. Okay, so we should always all think about that anytime people are dying in Flannery O'Connor. Susan Strigley was at the conference a few months ago and announced that her big new project is death studies, and she's going to be recruiting people to write more about death and dying in Flannery. And we're still in the first third of the book, but I can see, yeah, there are hints in here that this can be a topic that grows on us more. Okay, on to the next thing. I thought I knew the works of Edgar Allan Poe, and I thought I thoroughly understood the Flannery O'Connor Edgar Allan Poe connection. But oh my, I reread this, and Brad's talking about the stories that most influenced Flannery O'Connor. And darn, if he didn't give a title that wasn't in the Poe anthology I used when I took a graduate seminar in Poe, The System of Dr. Tar and Professor Feather. I pulled my wife's edition of Poe off the shelf and read that story, and it was the first time Poe's humor has ever made me laugh. Now, maybe I was in a particularly silly mood that day, but I thought, I've read all these things that are supposed to be funny by Edgar Allan Poe, and none of them are funny. They're just kind of painful and awkward. And here's one I thought was genuinely funny, and it's about an insane asylum. And I thought, well, of course, this is relevant to Flannery. And I put that detail with a detail that I had completely forgotten that's in the second chapter, that Andalusia Farm sold milk to a number of places. One of them was Central State Hospital. No, I'd forgotten that. Okay. Flannery's going to know that. She's going to know that her connection to Central State Hospital isn't just that she invites people who work there to come to her book club in the parlor once a month. No, she's got a financial interest in the selling of milk from that farm for the people who are living at Central State Hospital. I mean, just to me, that just, you know, that just changes how much distance she could imagine she could keep from the world's largest or second largest asylum and all of its problems that I'm sure everybody in Milledgeville wanted to kind of live in denial about. But, you know, she's no dummy. She knew it was she had to know it was a mess of a place. Okay, so I recommend The System of Professor Farr and Dr. Tar and Professor Feather. I mean, I'm sorry if you don't laugh at it, you know, that's okay. I just thought I thought Poe was incapable of making me laugh unless it's one of his really serious horror stories. I can laugh at those, but you know, the stuff that's supposed to be funny has never been funny to me. And then it's one that Brad points out probably was influential on O'Connor, and I think, okay, I've dropped the ball on that one. College years, you know, when the final pages are about the college years, and I think this is all stuff that people already use. We get people quote from what Flannery was doing in college because they want to think about the development of her mind and what she read and how she used things and so on and so on and so on. And I want to mention in passing before we go that here's a book that doesn't get a whole lot of attention. It's not a book. Flannery O'Connor's College Journal was published some years ago, 2017, in a magazine that has since gone out of business, called Image, published at Seattle Pacific University. I'm sure if you Google Image Magazine, Seattle Pacific University, you can find somebody who will sell you a back issue. There must be an office somewhere on campus that's like my office with stacks of old magazines sitting around, and you can still get one of these things. She called her journal Higher Mathematics because she didn't want anybody to look at it. And so she put that label on it, thinking nobody will pick this up and read it if it's called Higher Mathematics. And Mark Bosco wrote a little introduction to it. It's not particularly fascinating. I mean, it's no prayer journal. You know, she was writing much better journal when she got to graduate school than she was writing in her college years. But still, if you've never seen this and you'd like to see it, I would suggest going for it. And I do want to mention that the cartoon books, Flannery O'Connor, the cartoons, and my own, the cartoons of Flannery O'Connor at Georgia College, I imagine some of this stuff will be on display on March 26th at the art exhibit, especially because I think, didn't you tell me, Katie, that more linoleum prints, linoleum blocks where Flannery's gouging out bits to make a cartoon, that more of those were found in the Klein house when, you know, the doors were opened and those rooms that hadn't been visited in decades were cleaned out. Well,
Yeah,
I
some
think,
of those will be at Andalusia. The main thing that was found were paintings,
oh, they
which,
found more paintings.
oh yeah, we have like 68 visual items that we've acquired that will be on display for the birthday. Not all 68, but
Okay, are they going to put cartoons on display?
no, it's going to focus.
No. Oh, okay.
No. It's going to focus on the paintings. Yeah,
Well,
that's the cartoons is the early stuff. This is all stuff that was mostly late. I mean, there's some juvenilia, and Jess can correct me, but I think we just had a meeting about it today. Some of that
okay.
will stay at, it's, you know, we're going to have this gala art opening that's 24 hours only, or 48 hours. And it's a lot of big paintings that are beautiful, that she continued to do until the end of her life. So the cartoons we're seeing, you know, the two books cover that. We're not making prints or anything, but we'll have some of those lino cuts, the block stuff, on display at Andalusia, most likely. That's the latest. It's
Okay.
still being curated.
So get yourself a cartoon book if you want to know about the cartoons. For a lot of people, it's still news that those things were part of her first artistic endeavor. Really was the cartoons, and then she started writing alongside that, you know, in the student publications at GSCW, and then the writing took over her life. I don't see much. This one of my questions is, can anybody connect what's in the cartoons with what's in the paintings? To me, it just seems like a whole new world when Flannery starts using a paintbrush and color, and the cartoons are a whole nother approach to everything. But yeah, it's all worth seeing. And 68, oh, that's a lot more than was on display in 1994 when I was given, you know, like 30 seconds to look at
Yeah.
Flannery
It's a
O'Connor's.
major acquisition. I think it's going to change how people think of her, because the cartoons is part of the story that's only now. Those books are out of print, by the way. I just put that in. There's 2 cartoon books. They're both out of print. So libraries have them. Amazon has some, you know, expensive copies. But that's the early stuff that, and I think the story was when she went to Iowa, she switched to being a fiction writer and stopped doing the visual art. But the paintings reveal that she kept doing that up until the end. She was taking painting lessons in Milledgeville when she returned. And she also used painting as a way to see, so she could work on, painting something, she could really describe it. So
Yeah,
but
I
yeah, they're
think of that
beautiful. They're very beautiful. A lot of them.
as very serious stuff, as part of her work. It was like, I'm going to be serious about this writing business. And so, what else can I do to make myself a better writer? Train the eye, practice painting, even if I'm not going to be the greatest painter of all time, because it's good for the writing. And that's another level of commitment. And, it answers the question, why is Flannery so good at making it possible to visualize what's going on in a story? I think it's, really, really, really visual fiction. And, there's an answer that much more than the cartoons, you know, the painting probably helped the fiction. Let's see. What questions do we have? I see this question from Craig, which I don't understand. What do you tell me what you mean about pages 82 and 116, Craig? You're mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, in both of those pages, Gooch mentions a biography that she wrote when she was in Iowa. So that leads you to believe there's a product that she wrote describing her life theretofore. So my question is, do you know anything about it? Maybe the first thing is, where is it? Is it in Iowa? Is it in Emory? Or is it at Georgia College State University? Or none of those three places?
I'll have to go back and look at those pages and think about that, because that just escaped me. No, I've never heard anything about a biography. I can imagine she might have been given an assignment to, write an autobiographical piece
Yes.
for one reason or another. An autobiography? But no, I've never heard about her doing anything like that.
Maybe another surprise for you.
Another surprise. Oh my God, she wrote the real story of her life, and we don't have it yet because we don't know where it is. Some box somewhere. Just keep open, just go up in the attic of anybody who ever met Flannery O'Connor and see if she left a scrap of paper there. You just don't know what's going to turn up.
It
Thank you
says,
for
well, I'll put it in the chat. If you look at the footnotes, it says it's a draft of Recollections of Flannery O'Connor that's at GCSU by Betty Boyd Love.
so somebody else writing about her. Well, we probably published Betty Boyd Love.
Yeah, it's a biography, not autobiography.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, people have written little things about O'Connor. And the people who knew her in Iowa, why wouldn't you write that up once she became famous and say, I knew Flannery O'Connor when she was full of anxiety and self-doubt. Let me tell you what that was like, to know her before she became so totally self-confident about what she was up to. And I'll bet you if we go back through all the issues of the Flannery O'Connor Bulletin, we can find a Betty Boyd Love thing. Maybe I'll look at 82 and 116, and if I can come up with anything more about that, we'll let you know.
Thank you.
Anything else anybody feels moved to say before we call it quits for tonight and declare victory? And so we will have our longest batch of reading for next month. I don't know why the pages broke that way, but it's as she's becoming a writer, and so there ought to be more stuff now where we say, okay, what do these biographical details that we're picking up have to do with the fiction? What jumps out at you as making you look at a particular story or a section of a novel in a different way? And it should be a lot of fun. And you know, my inclination is just going to be to talk about stuff that surprises me, but that's not necessarily knowing what other people need to get out of the biography. You know, anytime I read something and I say, gee, I've forgotten this and nobody's talked to me about it for the last 30 years, I'm going to jot that down and mention it to encourage people to use it. You know, make something of this. Okay, here's some more questions. I thought the manuscript of Higher Mathematics was, I'll bet you it says an image.
It says the terms of the agreement with the trust don't allow me. It's Bosco wrote something about it, but he says the terms of the agreement with the trust don't allow me to print the journal here. So it's either at GCSU or Emory, I guess. Then.
Yeah, I hadn't read it before. I saw it in Image magazine, so it may be in something that was sold to Emory. Yeah. What
Image
the page?
magazine, I just looked at the thing that you posted. Julie posted the link, and
okay.
Look at it. It's just Bosco's talking about it.
Bosco talking about it.
Yeah.
Page numbers we're supposed to read for next time. Okay,
Yeah.
I got this wrong in one of my announcements, so let's revisit that. We ended tonight on Iowa is chapter 4, right? Chapter 4, 117. To the end of chapter 7.
It's chapters
4 through 7. I don't have the schedule in front of me.
Okay, I just have it. It's on our website. It's chapters 8 through 10 for some reason.
Chapters 8 through 10, that's the third batch. So it's 4 through 7.
Oh,
for
4
next,
through 7.
yeah,
Okay.
through 7.
So let's get the dates in this chat then. Sorry about that, y'all. They're on the website, but we have to kind
The
of
website actually says the next one is just chapter 5 through chapter 5. So I think, but yeah, if you only
That's
got
wrong.
one
Okay.
session before you do 8 to 10, the next one must be 4 to 7. So
4 to 7 is
4 to
pages
7.
117 to 258.
Okay, so
Okay.
220, it's 4 to 7.
4 to 7.
220. Sorry.
It's a real page turner. Okay. Okay, and then the third month of doing this in March, we'll be talking about chapters 8 to 10.
Okay.
And
Thank you for that. Yeah, it's all on the website. We have so many things happening, as you
we
can
got
see.
so many things going on around here.
February has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 events. So
Okay, we'll declare victory. Thank you all for coming. Hope to see
Thank
you
you,
again
Bruce.
next month reading whatever it is we get around to reading for next month. Okay.